10th, 1967, when I signed my paperwork officially, but it was accepted. I had already signed it apparently, but that was my original date, May 10th, 1967. And ironically, I meet you either again, if you want to claim our psychic network and our psychic work down in Waikiki, and you coming to my uh, spiritual world network and psychic network with your spiritual center, that was 89 to 93. But you
That
and
was
I
in
met.
'93. I moved to Hawaii in 1993. Under very, and we'll cover this in another show, how I got to Hawaii. But you were there, so I think that the secret government, or the ETs or whatever, quote unquote, they arranged for people to meet. So we kept meeting and re-meeting and re-meeting, and now
Until
we're
we got it right, and we're still working on it.
still trying to get it right. Apparently, yeah,
Before we pass from using these bodies,
right.
the you know,
So you were
you
pretty
feel
young
like
at
this.
67. You were born in '51. So you
Yes.
were how? What's the minimum age to get in there?
Oh, I was 15, but my parents had to sign for me. I would be 16, and I was a special circumstance. There were a lot of girls. They were in the graduating class, and I signed up with seniors, but they thought I was because I was on the front of the Houston Chronicle and had gotten a lot of government attention. And
And
uh,
you're tall. You're a big
I'm very
girl.
tall. I look good in my uniform. It was red, looked like an airline stewardess. And so it was James Madison High School graduating class, May of '67. But I made the newspaper with the senior class, and also being a Houston Spinneret and meeting, Sonny Bono and Cher and Bob Hope. And, I was very up. And then we danced for some uh, people from over in Arabia as well. So we were the dance and, you know, group and went like with Bob Hope. It was fun. It was being on stage, but
Right.
it was that part is what got me into. I think we talked about the baton twirling and dancing. So all of those show skills, and then remember, or maybe you don't know, maybe we haven't discussed it. I get so lost, Janet, with all the things we've been doing all these years,
I
but
know this. It doesn't matter if we repeat, but sometimes we repeat. Sorry, people, but we're going back and forth because it's not. Life is not like that. You're living in life, and then you have memories, and then you go, oh, I forgot that. And something pops
well,
in. Something
Janet and I,
flow.
we're going forward from, I would say, our reckoning in '93 and '94 when she came over to Hawaii is when my memory begins with her down with a friend of mine, Robin, that had the downtown psychic. So that's the psychic dream of our reality as we actually started meeting. And then we were brought back together in 2007, but we had already been talking through MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, through Kentucky. Earl Benezet, was that his name? Or something Benezet.
Like that. Yeah,
And
there was
Barry, Barry Green? Barry
several people have lined
come
us
and
up
gone in our
together.
groups.
We
Yeah.
had a whole series of phone conversations back around somewhere 2008, 2008, or 2007, 8, 9, something like that. Then all of a sudden you dropped off the face of the earth, and none
Yeah.
of your numbers worked. And I was going, what in the
Well, I
world?
remember I was talking to you way before I was talking to Stanton T. Friedman in 2006, and we bought our house in 2000. So somewhere, I remember being at my house before we moved, and gosh, that was way back there. I married Tom in 2000, and you were with your husband. So I don't know how you became a contractor and working at Johnson Atoll, except through the guy that I met downtown Waikiki. And then you and I, with the Stargate Project and the Men in Black, had one or two men that knew both of us through the table tapping your spiritual center and us going to the spiritual center and doing you came up with a gentleman in Hawaii to our psychic We had at the Hilton.
Right. We met, and I don't want to name a lot of names because I don't want to get anybody in
All the
trouble.
people. Well, I think they had a lot to do with whether you were going to get a clearance to go to Johnson
I
Atoll.
when I said to my boyfriend who had clearance because his father worked in the nuclear facilities, and so he kind of,
But
you
you
know,
were
a
contracted.
lot of it starts in our childhood, right? You're in the military recruits you. That happened to
Well, your dad was a postman. That's
Billy
supposed to
Wooder.
be.
Yeah, well, my family goes back to the Revolutionary War, and they've been military
Well,
the
they
whole.
already knew who you were from all
So
the
they
wars.
daughter of
Your
the American Revolution.
government service. You're a child of government service. The U.S. Postal, Jan Aldrich was a postman for 50 years. He's one of our
Yeah.
best UFO investigators.
My dad
Jan Aldrich.
was a postman for 39 years, and then my brother followed, and he was a postman for I think like 25, 30 years. He had to stop because he had heart surgery, or he would have been working until he retired. So he had to take early retirement because he had a heart attack. But anyway, we're
Well, probably.
finding these connections. Then there was World seminars and those people. Now that seemed like World seminars with the front to find psyches because, and your spiritual center, because when I went to their, New Age spiritual workshops for, personal growth and evolution, there I was doing remote viewing exercises, and I did pretty well apparently. And so that alerts them to the radar. So by the time I got on, well, probably let's go back in time. When you're a contactee, I think that I'm sorry, I have a little gecko that keeps trying to crawl on my
Well, we were talking when we got our clearances, but you want to talk about mine, and I want to talk about yours.
Okay, so we'll use this show now. So
We're
going
helping each
back to
other.
when we're children, like George Cavasilis from Australia says that they basically take everybody, and then at a certain point they go, the ETs, which are probably work with the military, and they say these are the ones we want to track their entire life because they kind of and think about it, they could do that easily. I mean, we do all our cows and dogs, and we manage our animals, so that we're like the animals, and they manage us, and they decide, well, these are the special ones. So by the time we're 2, 3, 4 years old, they already know which ones they want to track. So we got selected by extraterrestrials when we were very young children. But then the other was, you got recruited at 15, like Billy Faye Woodard and Bill Tompkins. Their story is they got recruited. They basically didn't get to even graduate high school. Or the recruiters were right there when they came off the stage, and they said, for graduation, come on, you're coming with us. Both of those people. So there's a group that they track, and they know who you are, and they recruit you before you go off to college or anything. It's like, no, you're coming into our program, because they know these psychic children or people with special abilities, photogenic memories, So you were definitely special. You could twirl these dangerous batons.
Well, you're special too.
Right.
Just because I did the U.S. Treasury and pulled
special. Now I know that. We're focused a little bit more.
Well, you had nuclear Q and I had Q because we both had contract level nuclear.
Right.
So we both worked around hazardous material. We were both government contractors. We were both pretty little special agents in charge, secretary, GS5 level kind of girls that they like to have around to do all the work. And I worked in engineering while I was in Hawaii, but I did a lot of the office personnel information security. And
I worked in engineering at Penn State. There's another correlation.
Yeah.
When I was at Penn State, this kid came in and he was not human. And I'll tell our listeners about that when we get to the 90s. But they check up on us.
Well, you were.
Yeah.
If we do a timeline sequence of events, we can just do like the GPT-3 gives us 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. Right. But, it really jumps after Windows 95. And I was over in Hawaii when we went from Wayne computers to Windows, Microsoft, right? Microsoft.
What year? Let's get the people. Let's hear What year are we talking about when you're talking
Well,
about
I was I was brought back in Star Wars '85 as
right?
a 4x10 rehire, but I was also told I was being actively recruited again by the men in black in the black cars and the black suits. And then when I came in from Africa, and I had come in from Europe,
What
I
year was
was
that about?
attache work. What
What
military?
what year?
Oh,
Yeah.
American Culture International Relations or Advisory Council Intergovernment Relations. Oh,
But
what year was
approximately
that?
what year was that?
Oh Lord. I'd already been to Acapulco. Let's see, I'd had my kids. I'd already gone to Camp Pendleton. I'd already been to Balboa Hospital, California, 75, 6. And I met Jesse Marcel, 76. And me and Stanton Friedman were working on National Archives as contractors. Uh, I was back in uniform. They gave me a weird date. They did that intentionally and told me so, so they could have me. Uh, it's a little cute intelligence trick. They did on 4/29/85 was a leap year, 8 years. So they said, okay, you're signing a 32-year contract because we're
Oh
pulling you
wow.
in a leap year. And then they had me re-sign another contract at Fort Hood. And I can't remember the date because they told me it wasn't important because I already had the 32-year contract. But they just wanted me to re-ASVAB. I had already delabbed and I made like 89 or 87. But I took the Defense Language Aptitude Batteries the second time. I took the U.S. Treasury MEPS, had me come in, walk like a duck, do the physical polygraph. Oh, I remember they were bringing me in to do all this extra special access work as an investigator. But at the same time, I was already out of country and trained in the U.S. embassies and going in and out of the State Department level. So I already knew that. I already had, um, well, think about it, Janet. From 67, they were training me with people in and out of country and working in the oil industry out of Houston. I'd already gone to the oil, the country clubs and met all the people, met all the wealthy people. And they showed me all around Africa, the gold mines and what all we do. And they took me around Europe, Spain, Portugal. And then I was attaché when they brought some things happening in Turkey. And then I met some people in Chicago. Now that was 87. I had a lot going on when I re upped May 10th, 1987. And that was on the original timeline. But
All
you and
right.
I
So
came
that's
in.
another thing we get into different timelines, and I've had that experience. Like
Well,
I
the
go back
contracts
to Johnson H
crossed.
all the time, and I go I'm in the same location, but it's a different timeline.
Well,
And
they
the
lost my paperwork or
yeah,
said it burnt in a fire. I've heard both, but I had a lot of TDY orders. So they had sent different women.
what's
One
a
of them was
TDI order?
temporary duty.
Temporary
It's
duty.
like temporary active duty or active duty. Back in the day, they had different cards. They had green cards and
Let's kind of get
red
back because we're
cards and
jumping too
orange
much.
cards.
Let's go back sequentially. So
Well,
we were covering the 60s, and now we're looking at one of your episodes where the Men in Black took TJ. So are you in
oh,
the
yeah.
military when they took you, or were you private? Were you civilian? Could you go
Uh,
in and out of
that's a
the
good question because I was wearing a uniform. I was wearing a Navy uniform when I went to see Jesse Marcel. I had
Okay.
on the jeans, the black tie-up boots, and the powder blue jean shirt, but I didn't have to wear the cap because, well, they gave it to me, but I didn't have to wear it in his house. It was a little fold jobber. Looks like an envelope this way.
Uh
I didn't have to wear the white one like the
huh.
sailors. And and I they didn't want me looking in my dress blues, with my cap with the bill where I look real
Which is
professional.
this
They
one
wanted me
here.
just looking like
That's
everyday.
the dress blues. That's navy, right?
Yeah, well, it used to be. Now I don't even know what they've got anymore.
Right.
I
But
should
that was
because I pick them up every day around here, and as a conveyor on and off. Uh, well, the
base.
Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines all work together around here, but especially the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force. Here in Pensacola, where I come and go off the bases, right?
Right.
So, but they've changed all the uniforms, and so I couldn't tell you
Modernized, yeah.
unless you want me to study it, which I
No,
don't.
no, 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 no. Here, let's just stay on track here. So
All right. Well, Jesse
you're
Marstell's
you're in the Navy. A Navy man came to you. You're in Dallas.
white
Uh,
van.
excuse me. There's this. The air is not good here. So, sometimes my sinuses are going crazy.
Well, you have polyps too, don't you? You have to have
Well, I
operation.
do, but we have these particulates from the different fires that, depending on where the wind blows, it comes my way. It's like, then I start sneezing.
Well, it's important that we rebuild, but fortunately, you're in Wailuku, right, in the upper mountains, and you get your water. It amazes me, folks. She filters her water. They actually catch rainwater and filter
Oh,
it
we get our water from the river. There's 4 rivers that come from the mountaintop, and
down
they
through
flow
the
down
mountaintops.
the West Valley Mountains down into the ocean. And we have 2 rivers on either side. One goes right through our property. I'm talking about a stream. So they divert it into little streams that come down through the different property. So one stream comes right down the middle of our property, and they go back down to the other uh, communities and down to the filtration plant is in Wailuku, so we're above the plant, so we have to do our own filtration. And we're the last house before 12 miles of rainforest. So behind us is just forest preserve and rainforest, and there's pigs up there. And at the top of Fukui is a swamp. So I don't think the fire could have gone over the mountain because it's the wettest spot on earth at the top of that mountain. So that the fires couldn't have climbed the mountains over the top because it was too wet. So
Well,
Lahaina was
maybe
dry. That's
the
why it caught.
reason our location is important, folks, is we're building a whole universal fandom, but at the same time, alienology and ufology is rather new on the planet, even though it's been here forever. We're just claiming alienology and alienologist and ufologist and cosmologist to a different level. But Janet's in Maui and I'm in Gulf Breeze, so we handle the United States of America. But of course, we'll be more than happy. We're using the business language English, but if you want to talk, we're strictly going to talk in American English. And she's in Hawaii, I'm in Florida.
Right.
And we're talking because we were prior contractors, but not to, I mean, we honor everything about our country and we're very loyal to our country. And we grew up, pledging allegiance to the flag and, saying, well, I pledge allegiance and singing my
Well,
country sympathy.
let's go back.
But
Let's go back.
with you and me separating our government story as contractors, and remember, you recently mentioned I've been in uniform and you haven't, but still, a lot of people need to understand the difference between working on base as civilians in civilian clothes, your civvies, or in a uniform. And even in uniform, you can be wage grade, WG, or driving big equipment or heavy industrial, or you can be a GS, that's a civil servant that gets paid, GS 1 through 18, if you
But you
will.
can be an experienced contactee in and out of uniform.
That can be in and out of
Just
uniform because you
because
have,
you're not officially in the military, and I never desired to join the military. I was on a different path. My brother was in the military. He was okay with it, but I don't think he particularly enjoyed it. I mean, he didn't sign
and
up for life. He came out. He was in during the Vietnam War, and he came out and became a postal worker. So, in a way, that's like you go from the postal workers are still government, so he was still working for the government. So, anyway, That's
All
an
right, so
aside.
you've got to
There
meet
was
Jesse
this
Marcel.
the extraterrestrial part of this experience because
Well,
that's what people like to hear about.
let's let's
So what
pretend your
happened?
brother's listening, Janet. So, we can have an audience of one. Just say we're talking to your brother that doesn't understand what kind of work we do. But folks, we have been born and bred into this, and she's doing genealogy a lot like Mormons, Latter-day Saints do in alienology and archaeology. But also, Janet's known to put family lineage together, and that's her thing. I'm not into that. I did it for a while for my mother and grandmother and families, but that's part of this journey. Now, the other part is what Janet's doing is teaching people the difference of the military and being in uniform or out of uniform, because right now there's so much in the disclosure movement that Dr. Stephen Greer is separating into military and thinking that they have a view much more interesting because they wore a uniform or they saw uh, UAPs because it on TV since 2004. But we're seeing
Let me
people
ask you
meeting.
a question about when
Go
you were
ahead.
in uniform. When you were in uniform, working on a base or whatever you were doing, did you ever encounter extraterrestrials? So when I was on Johnson Atoll, I was in what's called the JOC building, which I'm not sure what it meant, but it was a large box, four or five story box, maybe six, and it was no windows because it was designed to, as
You
a
were in the
police
Joint Command, weren't you?
JOC, whatever that stands for, Joint Office Command, right, the command center. And when I walked past this certain room, there was a double blind, so you couldn't see into the room because there's a military guy right standing there. You could see him, but they had a wall, and then you went around a wall. But I could feel the gray aliens because they're telepathic, and every time I go past them, they would buzz me like third eye chakra, crown chakra, and I said, "You guys are playing with me." It's like I knew they were playing with me because certain people are psychic. So what I've uncovered is eventually I ended up going under, and I'll cover this in a future episode, but I ended up going to the underground, underwater military installation. And these military DUMs, they call them DUMs, what's that? It's an acronym for something. Deep underground, something, anyway, military bases. They're connected by some kind of, and they want to call it a rail system, but it's not rail, it's an underground tube system of high speed transportation. So you can literally get around the planet like in about an hour. So you're not having to go up above. And of course, there's all kinds of tunnels. So anyway, I'll go into my story another time because we're focused on certain
Well,
things.
I like hearing your story,
I have a
your
slideshow to go
channel.
with it, and it's a big one. It's kind of like the you have a movie you build to this. That's kind of like climax, but then it didn't stop. I still had all kinds of episodes after that. Now,
Well, you're
do you
wanting to
have
help people
any?
with disclosure.
Do you have any episodes where you're like somewhere and all of a sudden you're standing beside another alien and they're in an official capacity? I've met aliens in an official capacity, working alongside uh, U.S. military personnel.
Well,
So,
I've been in a lot of
yes.
places, I've been in a lot of bases. And when I was with J. Allen Hynek himself in air, I realized that he had met me at Lowry Air Force Base. And he was the
Uh-huh.
one to come out and brief me. And I didn't understand the deal about the Q clearance and working with him because I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. Now, Jesse Marcel, I didn't know who he was until they
Right.
took me. And they took me to the end of his street, and I think his house is still there. And we parked outside in a white van, and then Men in Black came up, pulled up at the same time around midnight. And so, what I learned in the spook business that I was in as a
Uh-huh.
woman in black, which I became, I went from navy dungarees, powder blue to my navy blue, which is black, and then wearing black suits. So it's like Men in Black. But I was a
Right.
woman in black. So I've had little kids do papers on me in California. I'd love to read them. They called me back and told me that they were journalists or whatever, but there's not that many people that'll talk about it. So, going into public relations, it's really based on your experiences, and you just speak, your own. Would you like to have your own opinion or point of view? And so, what you do is you speak from that tone of voice, and that you're entitled to free speech and your personal opinion. So, I can tell you that I had no contract. I was just picked up on the side of the road. So they make it where it's very hard. I can tell you when I've been in, Fort Hood, or I've been in a room that I said, I was told I was going to sleep there by myself, and the mist came in. I can tell you stories. And when I went to D.C. and Washington, Langley, Tyson Corners, and felt like there were mirrors in the cameras when I get out of the shower. And you can be paranoid about that, or you can just accept it. So back in the day, we didn't have Homeland Security or Space Force or anything like that. We just had NSA, National Security, and Central Intelligence Agency, and a few others, but joint. And so what this Jesse Marcel story was coming from was actually Strom Thurmond calling me and talking to me, and then about family, like you did, Janet, in the beginning. It was about ancestry, looking into his family, blah, blah, blah. My name was Thurmond, and, did I remember, like, Ripley, Mississippi, and my uncles, and Thurmonds, and my grandpa, and Uncle Charles. He knew Uncle Charles, and visited my brother, Nat Thurmond, and Nat was a Marine Corps special his E5, he was a shooter Marines over in Paris Island, but that's the Thurmond name. But yeah, and then Uncle Gilmore was in the Air Force, so I already had plenty of people in uniform before Strom Thurmond talked to me, as far as I know. Now, when he talked to me, it was to do with the drawers adjustment bureau kind of stuff, and going out to the military industrial complex. No, going to contractors, which Tom and I wound up working with. I worked with some in Texas and some around Virginia.
So what was his connection with Jesse Marcel?
Working with reverse engineering.
So this is Jesse Marcel the first, not Junior.
Yeah,
not the third.
Well, the Junior was asked to remember too, and then.
So when did you meet with Jesse the first or Junior?
I met Jesse Senior and Junior, and then I talked for hours and hours with the third.
The third, okay.
The young
so
boy.
What was the connection between Strom Thurmond, who was a very powerful senator? I think he died.
He was working.
And what's his connection with Jesse Marcel and the
He worked on the back end, or all this backroom deals they make on who gets to see what, so to speak. I guess you could say, like, if you go to Dayton, Ohio, what's under the base there, Dayton, or who gets to see under Groom Lake, maybe, or on the underground mountains, maybe even Dulce. But these people are working together with various elites and wealthy people. But I didn't know any of his connections. I was just a young girl. I mean, I was 1978 is when he was talking to me, because I had investigative services then. Right. I was a young girl, but I had a smart
head. Why did they want you to meet with him? I mean, I know your backstory.
They asked me to come to Washington, D.C. on that.
This episode where the Navy guy,
Dan Inouye, Senator Inouye.
Wait, let me talk for a second. government knows who TJ is. They sent a Navy man to Dallas in 75 to 76 to drive her to meet Jesse Marcella at night in a secret out in certain town there. I forgot. And so this is notes I made previously when we talked.
Okay.
So, and then you said that.
I can't hear you.
So, what were you going? What was the reason for this visit? Let's just take this one visit. Why did they have you meet Jesse Marcel?
Did not tell me anything.
So, what did
Just
you
like when
glean?
I met J. Allen Hynek. Nobody tells you a
know,
brief.
you know, on some.
I
more
wasn't
levels.
brief, Janet.
I know, but what
Oh, I know what happened, and I know what I think.
I
But
mean,
that's
you've
strictly
had
my
60
opinion.
years to reflect on this, or 50 years. So
I didn't
what,
have to write up a report. Those other men in black were there to do that.
reflecting on that, do you know? Did you have like an aha, like a, oh, that's why?
Maybe National Archives has a copy of me. I've seen Stanton Friedman do people that I didn't know he gave to National Archives, or somebody gave him doing it, gave them to
Why
him.
you let's meet Jesse Marcel? Okay, so let's go through the episode. What happened while you were there?
Okay. I got out of the van. We were tired because we drove straight through from uh, San Diego, Camp Pendleton, and drove straight back over there. I didn't even get to stop and see my family or anything because it was a business trip, which I didn't
Where
understand
was he?
why.
Where was he located? What town? I don't have a town.
Oh Lord, somewhere down in Louisiana. That's what I mean. I couldn't
Where
even.
was
I
Jesse?
wanted to stop by and see my grandma. What? Jesse,
Where
he
they
lived,
drove you from?
Homa or Homa, I don't know, somewhere down South Louisiana. It was
Okay.
night, Jan.
You drove across the country, but you're not sure. They didn't put you in the loop.
They didn't say where we were going. I had no clue, Janet. I'm just in a uniform. I'm just a young, dumb Navy person. Okay, I'm supposed to be like a E3 corpsman if I was asked. That's what they told me. They told me to use my social because they don't give out military numbers anymore. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what they were talking about most of the time. I was so lost.
So you
Now,
get
this
there.
is way before I was an investigator.
So you get
I
to this
became an
location.
investigator.
You're a young girl. You get to this location. You have no idea why you're
I'm
there.
just a dumb recruit.
They tell you that was his name?
No, I didn't know who I was seeing.
Okay.
No, all this, Janet, the story we're telling is way after the fact. This is the old people. You know, we're fixing to die possibly in the next 25 years. You know, I'm 70. I'll be 72. You're going to be what, 69 or 70?
Right. 69.
So
and here's the
you're going to be 69 and I'm going to be 72. And we're just starting to tell the story, you know, here 2023.
So what happened during this meeting? Let's just go to what happened.
I had to go. They just opened the door and I got out and the men in black came and got me just like they did when I was with Ronald Reagan. People just take over and escort you. I was already used to it because of the James Bond movie, right? I'd already agreed to all this. Remember at 15? So by the time, I mean, I've already agreed to the party or to go and work with these people when I was a teenager. So I didn't know what I agreed to, and I'm still going along for the ride. I mean, I don't know that they know.
Okay, so they come and get you. They take you to see this man, which you now know is Jesse Marcel Sr. And what happened?
Now that I know, but once I got in, because they told him to tell him my name, blah, blah. But that was about it, because he had already been talked to. He said I'd just missed Stanton Friedman. Did I know who that was? And I said no.
What happened with the conversation with you guys? What was covered?
Oh, we didn't know. Well, we both discussed that at a very simple level with men. People just stand around waiting for us to talk. It's like two goats staring at each other. We don't know what we're supposed to do. He was there. He was in his, picture is seen. I get out of a van and a white one, and the black men in black had come up in their black van or cars, and we go to a gate or inside the house. He answers the door. He's in a wife beater. He goes in, sits at a table. I have a dull light on in the kitchen. It's late. It's after midnight. And I don't even know what happened to Bobby. I don't know where Bobby was. That's the Bobby that I don't even know if that was his name, but that was the driver.
Mhm.
And I'm standing. They bring me in, and he looks at me, and we just hi, asked me my name, and I just said Thurman because on my shirt, Thurman, just sort of obvious. And so he can see I was a Navy guy, girl. And then he said, "Well, I guess you're here to, like everybody else, to want to know where, you know." I don't know what words he said because a lot of it was psychically, because it was like he didn't trust anybody, and he was weary of those guys, the men in black. Okay.
Right.
And I don't know if we were being filmed or not. I cannot remember that part. If they were filming us or if it was not filmed, I can't remember that. I've been asked that before, and I can't remember if there was a. I can't remember where a camera would be. It was like it wasn't public. So I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, me standing there, him sitting in his chair with wife beater on. I don't know if he was smoking or not, or drinking something with his hand. It was late. Uh, he had been told to expect us or something. We missed Stanton, and then he started talking. He said, "Well, I guess they're going to want to dig up the whole backyard," and that I knew what it was about somehow because it had to do with ETs. Because I had already learned that when I was brought in from, when I had Angela in Grumman and NASA and up in Montauk Point about grays and aliens. And somehow he
Sometimes
knew
now
about
this was
these.
about ETs. You
He
said
knew he had something to do with that whole energy, psychic energy of the purple writing, and like his son had a piece later, or said, or wanted the piece, or I don't know if they really duplicated it, but it was something to help jog people's memory of the Roswell UFO encounters with the Roswell ship. So Jesse Marcel, oh, there you go. Help go back. That was him when he was. That was him. So now, see, I didn't know all this. I know all this now after helping, J. Allen Hynek put pieces together. But I was always there being educated. I just didn't know what for. So
uh
I thought I wanted to be an investigator, or maybe that's the way they trained me. I did fire arts and fraud subrogation, and I went to the fire college, and I went and got certificates for personnel and information security out of Chicago. But I mean, did they program me to be an investigator, or did I really want to be one? Did I want to be a ufologist or an alienologist? I don't know.
and
Did they make me one?
there's so much orchestration going on behind the scenes, and when they decide they want you to be something, you become it, and you don't know if that was your own will or it was something they
I, I
kind of
know.
influenced you to
But
do.
my job was to
It includes
same as
relationships sometimes.
his.
You get
We were
attracted. They do these, like we call them love bites, where you end up being drawn to certain people to have in your life, even as romantic partners. You have babies together, all kinds of compulsions that seem to be directed. Now, here this is something that was from the internet, that he had this place where he hid some of the metals.
Oh yeah. In some of my investigation, some people had given me uh, some information on the letter, and at one point, and they had to do with Strom Thurmond and Senator Dan Inouye. And see, they were doing their own investigation too. So they were on some committee, I don't know, standing committee for behind the scene government. I just know back in the day, a lot of senators didn't know what's going on. And it was their job to be in task force or committees back with Truman, I guess, and Eisenhower and Kennedy and Johnson and I don't know. All I know is I didn't wake up to everything and put it all together until Reagan educated me and George Bush.
Uh-huh.
And Cheney wanted to know what I was doing, Dick Cheney.
So
So,
how do you know that Cheney wanted to, you? I know you met
well, I don't from him
Biden.
personally. He never approached me in human form. Never. That I know about, unless he was behind a glass or something.
Right.
But now, see, like this lady was there in the room, but she was also behind the glass. But this isn't the lady. This is a picture of me, like in a different human body. But he doesn't know why I use that picture. I said, I do.
Right. This is from
It's me.
Lawrence Spencer. He wrote this book based on this. It kind of does look like you, Teresa. Uh, yeah, I can show you a baby picture. It kind of looks like you. Uh-huh. So, but we are dealing with past lives in this too.
Yeah.
Because at one point we had a story. We'll save it. I'm going to put a lot of teasers so people keep coming back, and hopefully we can get through all these episodes because I've been interviewing. Teresa and I've been working together actively since 2012. We've done over a couple
We're
thousand.
trying to put all this together and the name Errol. But see, psychically, Jesse Marcel had the ability. So did that Anderson guy, that little kid that went out. He was on the site.
Who's
Stan
Anderson?
Rubin. I don't know. His name's Stuart Anderson. I think no. I get the Andersons all mixed up, unless I'm looking at it in it because it's been too many
We're trying
years.
to
But
straighten this out. So, just to clarify things, sometimes the military or the aliens will blank out parts of your memory. But one of the problems is when they blank out memories, they come back. It seems like they don't have total control to blank you out forever. So people,
right,
they sometimes have spontaneous recall. There could be, it's like the whole planet is like Game of
Total
Thrones.
Recall. Yes,
Yeah,
gradually you get it back.
grab you go
That's why I
back.
like Philip K. Dick.
They don't
He
know
writes
why you get it
my
back. They don't know
reality.
why there's a bleed through in your memory, but your memory is kind of like the Russian dolls, and but there's all these threads and synapses, and then suddenly you'll be. I mean, sometimes like washing dishes, and it's like something comes back. And why? It's something like water when I'm taking a shower and washing dishes. I get these memories back. It's like the water's a conductor of information, and it's like, and then I'll go to my husband and go, okay, I'm like doing something completely unrelated. I just get this memory back. But one way I get a lot of my memories back, and this is why I'm encouraging you and other listeners to start to write. Now, if you
Remember
type
when?
and write, let me just finish the sentence. If you type
Sure.
and write, it'll start connecting and you'll get memories. But the best thing to do probably is to write by hand because there's a connection with your mind and your hands, right? Your hands and your mind, and then you're recalling this stuff. And the more you take your little memories and unpack your memories, right? So go ahead, your turn. What did you want to say to you?
Well, I know you and I are trying to put this story together, and I do have a lot, and I've done this for years and years and years. But you know, writing various scenarios, and you have to rewrite and rewrite depending on who you're investigating or who you're, wanting to get their story. And I was doing all that like Ace Folklife, and at the Smithsonian level, and music and writing music and doing music people, and then I was doing investigation on the UFO stuff back in the early 80s, but it was Senator Strom Thurmond and I guess Corso. And then later in the 80, yeah, it was 80s too, when I met Senator Dan Anoya, and then later on that Harry Reid, but they're all gone. They're all gone now. But oh,
All these people are
I met
gone.
Bill Tompkins, right? I met Bill at remember when you had Dr. Sala come on my show, or TGMRCT, or either?
Yeah, we've done a lot of I call it
Well,
cross
I
pollination
met
shows
Bill,
where
and
we
I was
simulcast and we go on each other's shows. So we've done. I mean,
I met
literally, we've
him
done
at a hangar.
you met him in a hangar. Yes.
I met Bill and he had the one of the few timelines like we were working on, like you're working on, and he told you to keep the timeline. But like I met Jesse Marcel, and then I was in touch for uh, lots of expensive $100 bill phone lines investigating, and then Stan Friedman, Kathy Martin, Jan Aldrich, Dr. Bruce Maccabee. I'm going to put all these people in our UFO HQ, people. Now, the people that didn't get in touch with me are as long as the ones that did. I
Right.
never talked to Stephen Greer. I never talked to Linda Moulton Howell. I never talked to Leslie Keene. I don't.
But see,
I did talk to
like,
Nick Pope.
like what you're missing, I talked to. What I'm missing, you talked to. So I
Oh,
talked
okay.
to Stephen Greer, sat
I
beside him
didn't.
at a Prophets Conference for not one show, but because I used to work with the Green Room and help the Prophets Conference, so we were responsible for the people who's next on stage, right? So I talked to Stephen
Talk
Greer.
louder or something. I can't
Oh,
hear you.
I talked to Stephen Greer at the Prophets Conference because my husband and I were working the Green Room, so we were helping to coordinate who's on next and everything. So we got to have some private talk. So and then Linda Moulton Howe, I sponsored her to come to Penn State University when I was running the Penn State UFO discussion group in 1990. Probably was 1992 or 93. I'm getting a little bit mixed up with my timeline. But then I moved to Hawaii, and then I met you. And then I've talked to Linda at different conferences. So anyway, we've talked to these people, but not. I don't have these great. Well, Linda had some private conversations.
Now,
But
Paula Harris worked either with Dr. J. Allen Hynek or on a team or something.
yeah, she knows a lot of people. She was really
She and
close.
I talked on Facebook and
Yeah,
only in, remember my daughter was dying.
yeah, we're networking with all these people on some level, but it's not the level I would like to see where we're really connecting the dots and putting together this oval.
Right.
Because
We know all about these.
there's a level of secrecy and competition even within the UFO field, which I would like us to put that aside and go, if we really connect all these dots and we value everybody's contributions from the abductee, contactees, experiencers, whistleblowers, people in the secret space program, researchers. Because even like a researcher, I was talking to a couple of these famous researchers, and they go, "Why are you so interested in ufology when you've never had contact?" And they'll be in almost like an unnatural level of denial. Oh, nobody's ever. No, I've never been. I go, really? You've never been taken or contacted or? Oh no,
A lot of people don't want to talk about it because
it's
it freaks them out.
So they're terrified
Anything
that they are.
paranormal.
And then you and I
Terrified.
and a couple, maybe even hundreds of thousands of millions of people now are so saying, I'm a contactee and I'm proud of it, and I'm going to tell you my story, and I don't care if you believe it or not, but this is my story, and I'm sticking with it, and I'm not going to take it to my grave. I'm going to get it out there. I'm going to let you know what happened, and that's been going on. The bravest people were back in the 40s and 50s. Those first generation contactees right after
Valiant Thor. Remember Valiant Thor?
Amazing. Yes. George Green sponsored Valiant Thor in his house in New Jersey, and about 50 people came and they were sitting on his lawn, and they're all just hanging out with Valiant Thor, who's an extraterrestrial, and his whole crew, and these are extraterrestrials, and we're going, just think about that.
George Green. We had him on our show too. We did a lot of work.
Now I know George Green.
This story together.
Modern George Green just died a couple years ago. Now this was the 40s and 50s. Last name was Green. I might have the first name wrong. I've been piecing together these puzzles. But these people were like having a tea with these aliens, and all sitting around casually having a conversation with these aliens.
I've seen the photos.
And so that's amazing when you think of it.
I think I've seen National Archives. There's footage.
We're out of time.
You can look it up on YouTube.
Yeah. But the first generation experiencers, they were seeing the tall whites or even normal sized whites, which could walk among us and nobody would know the difference. And they called themselves Venusians. I think they did that for the comfort of the humans.
Venusians.
But I think they're like Pleiadian or Anunnaki or whatever. They're just the tall white. And then here comes 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, and suddenly we have these guys.
Well, great. So there's all types of those, but
Yeah,
you know, I too, that I was one of the few that had seen those. And when I went with Tom to Texas and Arizona Four Corners, and then around above Sedona, Arizona, Tommy, if you remember, said there was a base up there, but I they started interfering with my thought process, and I didn't know why. So then I told my husband, "That's, believe it or not, that's exactly when I get a call from the lady that was Walter Hout, I think his daughter." And I remember where I was in Little America, above Sedona, Arizona, and she was starting to run the Roswell July 4th museum thingy.
Yeah.
And she wanted me to know if I would speak. And
Right.
those little guys were messing with me, and they were everywhere. I mean, I'm sorry, but I was
people in New Mexico.
I was driving a truck at the time, and so
right.
I don't. Did I ever tell you that story that she called me to be a speaker, and I was talking to Stanton?
Well, let me make a note of that because we're out of time. But what was her name again? I'll make a note for next time.
I don't know, because I talked to her on the phone. She called me and hooked up with me.
So this is
it may have been Stanton Friedman that told her, or Glenn Dennis. It may have been Glenn Dennis, Walter Hout, or who was that guy named Sam?
Anyway, we'll think about it.
Well, they liked this story, and I think they told. I don't think they told George Knapp. I don't understand. There's a lot of competition for stories in Roswell, even though they all work together for the city of Roswell. And then there's the parade for Roswell, right? And then there's the museum.
So we've got to wrap this up because I promised our people it would be about an hour.
Well, Roswell is an important part of this.
We're going to go back into this. This is our preview. So
just this one picture makes me think of so much I want to say.
Well, I'll pull this up next time. We're going to
simulation.
Well, see, that's what happens when you're doing the research. You'll see things, and it'll trigger memories. Or
and Jesse Marcel too. We need to finish that whole story, because I didn't stay there long. That was what was so crazy. They took me right back in the van, and I had to ride an 18-hour trip or so right back to San Diego. That didn't even make sense to me.
I suspect that they blanked out your memory of a lot of stuff that happened there. Because if they don't want you to remember, they make it look like you
we're here and gone. Yeah,
you're here and gone. And you're going, what was that about? And it's like
I tried to find the records. One hospital corpsman tried to help me, and she found my name on the roll in the Balboa Hospital as HM3 under my social security number.
Right.
And that was back in the early 70s. And they had me on the row since 67, 68 when I went in. So she found it, but she said when somebody saw her looking it up, it was like, she said, I don't know who you are or what you're doing, but it's like very classified. So they must have, even not telling me, but when they do the temporary duty orders. See, I learned that later when I was, classifying and helping get clearances, and I'm working over on SINCPAC Fleet and ComNav Base, and I work for the Naval Facility Engineering Command. I started learning, working with the embassy.
We have to wrap this up, Teresa. So I'm sorry to block. I mean, we really do, because
you have enough you can work on, don't you? And
we've got so much we can work on for the next show. Let me just say real quick. Let's see, which one is it?
I understand the clearance levels though, because I had to work with them. National agency check, and then the confidential, secret, top secret. We had
I'm working
crypto,
on this,
with
which is
special
coming up. So
compartmentalized SCI. I know all
okay,
of
so
that.
we got to wrap this up. Okay, Teresa and I are working on books, but I'm working on this one, October 24. We've got this one, which I don't know when we're going to have that done. So Teresa and I are pulling this together into books. Anybody that wants to buy a book, let us know. They're not all ready yet. It's a lot to format and get written, but we're doing that in between everything else we
Oh, I
do.
like that picture. It's supposed to be me, but where's my name on the front? Am I helping write it or not?
If you are going to write, we'll put you on there. But right now, I don't
I
know.
would
We'll
try.
have to see. We have to.
I like the
It's
picture.
it's a whole thing, the concept and then writing. But I was just doing a mock up. So, all right, we're going to call this a day.
I like
Thank you.
that picture though. Thanks.
Yeah, I
Well,
thought
I
it was pretty.
sent you the start today, so of the Ascension Cosmos universe. If you want to be Luna in that one for me, but maybe
Okay.
you'll tell your stories and I'll tell mine. But you're mixing the
I
two.
think there's more than enough room for all the stories, but we just have to get them into a publishable format. And now I wrote this one last month. I published this one.
In a
So
month.
anyway, um,
Jeez.
so these are kind of like
EPP3, here we go.
autobiographical with fantasy, because it's so amazing. It's
Well, has
fantastical.
anybody bought one?
Oh yeah,
Question.
it's been selling.
Really? You're selling them? Good.
Yeah,
Really?
they're live. These are
Oh, they're
live.
beautiful.
I'm trying to get the hardcover up. I had a little bit of
I
problems.
always heard they buy the cover and they may never read the book, but they buy it for the cover.
They're damn good books. I order my books and I go, I did a good job. I go, so yeah.
Well, they sure are
So this
pretty.
is what we're doing. I'm learning how to write with the GPT-3 and the Grammarly and all these different things because
And a creative writer.
I didn't have the best English education, so
I guess I'll have to learn
I just
how.
wanted to encourage people to write now. It's the ideas and the
Good
concepts,
for you.
and you can use like a Grammarly or something to help you with the punctuation and the quotes and all that stuff. Don't let that intimidate you. They'll help
Okay.
you with your grammar and to help you format. And so I've been playing with it, and I've been doing a new book about every 2 or 3 months. But we've got to end. It's a 1 hour. It's 11, 11, 11. In 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. Okay, time to
Okay.
end the broadcast. Much
All
love
right.
and blessings. Aloha, everybody. We'll see you
Bye.
next week. Friday, we're coming on with a guest, so we'll see you then. Bye bye.
Oh, Friday.
Yes.
Friday. Okay. Bye.
Bye.